Imagine going on a vacation and overstaying your vacation visa, and the punishment for this overstay is for you to be stripped naked and beaten until your flesh breaks. Sounds harsh, but that is the reality of many Southeast Asian countries, and that is what we're going to talk about today. Hello everyone, it's Asian Anthony, and in this video, caning. Now, caning is a form of corporal punishment. It's a form of corporal punishment that uses something called a rodin, which is basically just the cane that they use to beat you with. Many countries like Indonesia, Malaysia, and Singapore frequently use this form of punishment on citizens, visitors, and even children. Yes, our ASEAN brothers and sisters are doing this. Now, this is a punishment that they use for violent criminals and non-violent criminals. And they use a special officer to do the beating. The people who are victims of this crime, and it is a crime by the government, they have their hands and feet tied, they're stripped naked. In Malaysia and Singapore, they're stripped naked. In Indonesia, it's done publicly, so you can't be stripped naked. But in Singapore and Malaysia, their hands are tied, stripped naked, and they're strapped to a heavy wooden frame. The executioner, or the guy who's doing the beating, swings the bat at your backside, and the bat, or the cane, can hit you at about 160 kilometers per hour. Now, obviously, because you're strapped down, you cannot resist. And many people are beat so hard that they faint. And if you faint, they have a doctor on standby who checks to see if you're cleared to medically continue. If you're able to medically continue, they just wake you up and they keep beating you. Now, if you're not cleared to medically continue, you go back to jail and you wait until you're able to finish your beating. Now, the ironic part about this rule, or this crime, because like I said, it is a crime, the ironic part about this was a practice that started by the British, who used to do the same thing to the Malaysians and the Singaporeans when they had control. And the Malaysians and Singaporeans still keep up this barbaric and brutal practice for reasons that I cannot explain. Let's start with Malaysia. Now, in Malaysia, you can be beat for violent crimes, non-violent crimes, and moral crimes. Remember, Malaysia is a predominantly Muslim country, so there are a lot of Sharia law offenses that will get you caned. Now, I will say, in the case of Malaysia, when you're caned in the name of Allah or by some Islamic Sharia laws, the cane is lighter and is not meant to be as heavy-handed. But you can be caned for things like cheating, being gay, even drinking alcohol in some cases. Also, for the non-violent offenders, you can be caned for just not having your documents, which is a big problem because Malaysia has a lot of refugees. Okay? And there's also other things you can be caned for, like smoking weed, which I think is ridiculous. They cane about 5,000 to 10,000 people per year. So they're caning many people every day. And in the last few years, they've caned up to 5,000 foreigners in Malaysia. Okay, that is unacceptable in my book. Let's talk about Singapore. Now, Singapore, you cannot be caned for moral offenses, but you can be still caned for non-violent offenses like vandalism, like smoking weed, okay, which is ridiculous. And of course, if you stay 90 days over your visa, you can be caned. This is ridiculous. Also in Singapore, they cane about 1,000 to 1,200 people per year. That doesn't sound like a lot until you realize they're caning multiple people per year. Okay, and I mean per day. They're caning multiple people per day, and this does include tourists and visitors. Now, Indonesia is a special case because Indonesia only canes a couple hundred people per year, and it's only in one province, and they only cane for moral reasons, if I'm not mistaken. but you can be caned for just being gay out there. But like I said, the Muslim caning is not as bad as the civil caning that you see in Malaysia and Singapore. This is not justice. This is torture. Make no mistake about it. And it does not work. Take Malaysia, for example. They cane people for being refugees. Has that stopped the refugee crisis? No. In Singapore, they cane people in the name of safety. But what about the other ASEAN countries that are perfectly safe that do zero caning? Take, for example, Vietnam. You cannot be beat by the government there for small non-violent offenses, and they're still safe, if not safer. It is ridiculous. What this is actually just torture. And take, for example, America. What if America decided to just beat people for being undocumented immigrants? It would be front page news. If you live in maritime Southeast Asia, this is not news to you. This is normal, and you probably think it's perfectly okay. But let me make my case to you. This is not about the government doing this for safety. This is about the government doing this for control. There's absolutely no research and no reason that suggests that caning actually works. It is just a way to scare you. And it's a crime done by the government. It is assault. Being beat by a citizen is no better than being beat by the government, especially in Singapore, where they go out of their way to strike you hard. Keep in mind, this is torture, not justice.